I flew 18 hours to attend my sister's wedding, carrying a navy dress, a gift, and a toast I had practiced over the Atlantic. At the venue, my parents stepped in front of the doors. My mother looked straight at me and said, "Only family is allowed. You weren't invited. Leave." My father said nothing. I walked back to my car while the music started without me. 3 days later, Mom called and asked, "The bill is $38,000. How will you pay?" I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I had already made one decision and she had no idea who would pay. My name is Hilary Parker. I'm 36, a software engineer, and I've lived in London for almost 9 years. From the outside, my life looked steady. Good job. Small apartment with tall windows, coffee from the same corner shop every morning. But every time my mother's name lit up my phone, I still felt 12 years old. In our family, Ashley was always the center of the room. When she was little, she had a serious health scare. She recovered. Thank God. But something in our family never did. After that, Mom watched Ashley like glass. Every decision bent around her. Every holiday, every birthday, every emergency. And me, I became the dependable one. "You're the older sister," Mom would say. "You can handle it." So I handled everything. I handled missed birthday calls. I handled being cropped out of family photos. I handled sending money home when Dad's truck broke down, when the property tax came due, when Ashley needed help with school. At Thanksgiving, Ashley's school pictures covered the mantel. Mine stayed inside an old drawer I noticed every year and pretended I hadn't. Mom never called it favoritism. She called it family. Dad called it nothing at all. Thomas Parker was a quiet man who could spend an entire Sunday reading the newspaper without turning more than 3 pages. He hated conflict so much that he treated silence like a moral virtue. Whenever Mom crossed a line, he lowered his eyes and waited for the moment to pass. It always passed for him, not for me. Then, late one October evening, Ashley called me from our parents' kitchen. She held up a diamond ring and squealed that Ethan had proposed. For one clean, hopeful second, I forgot everything. I saw my baby sister at 8 years old, wearing a pillowcase as a veil and making me officiate weddings between stuffed animals. I laughed. I cried. I told her I would be there. Mom leaned into the screen. "Don't rush into buying a ticket," she said. Something in her voice was wrong, too careful, too flat. 2 weeks later, she called again. This time, she needed help. The venue, catering, flowers, and photographer required deposits. Mom said the family was temporarily stretched thin. She asked me to put down about $4,000 and allow my card to remain as a backup payment method. She promised that she and Ashley would cover the remaining $38,000. I should have hesitated. Instead, I heard the word sister and said yes. I bought a navy dress. I ordered Ashley a wedding gift she had once mentioned wanting. I even started writing a toast, but no invitation came, no envelope, no email, no message with my name on it. When I finally asked Mom, she laughed softly. "Hilary, don't be ridiculous. You're her sister. Sisters don't need invitations." I wanted to believe her, so I did, long before I understood the price. And that was exactly what she was counting on. Over the next 4 months, the wedding seemed to grow without me. Ashley created a planning chat with her bridesmaids, cousins, and Ethan's sisters. I learned about it by accident when she forwarded me a screenshot meant for someone else. 6 women were debating table linens. My name was nowhere on the screen. I called her that night. "Do you need anything from me?" There was a pause long enough to feel deliberate. "No, we're good. Mom has everything under control." That should have reassured me. Instead, it sat in my stomach like cold coffee. A week later, I asked about the seating chart. Ashley said it wasn't finished. Then I asked what time I should arrive. She told me Mom would send details. Mom never did. The night before my flight, Ashley posted photos from the rehearsal dinner. She stood between our parents in a white dress, smiling beneath a string of patio lights. The caption said, "All my favorite people in one place." I stared at those words until the screen dimmed. Then I packed anyway. The trip took 18 hours. including a long layover and a final flight that shook through a band of winter rain. My neck hurt, my eyes burned, but I kept imagining the moment Ashley saw me. I pictured her running across the room. I pictured Mom hugging me. I pictured Dad carrying my suitcase to the car. None of that happened. When I landed, Mom replied to my message with 4 words. Busy. See you tomorrow. At the hotel, I hung my navy dress in the closet and set Ashley's gift on the desk. I practiced my toast in front of the mirror, quietly enough that the people in the next room wouldn't hear. The next afternoon, I drove to the venue. The place looked beautiful. White fencing, open fields, gold lights hanging between old trees. Violin music drifted through the air, soft and clear. My heels sank into the gravel as I walked toward the entrance. Dad saw me first. For 1 second, his face opened with surprise. Then he looked away. Mom stepped outside before I reached the doors. She wore champagne silk and the same perfume she had worn every Sunday of my childhood. Hilary, she said, "What are you doing here?" I almost laughed because the question made no sense. "I'm here for Ashley's wedding." Her expression didn't move. "Only family is allowed." The music behind her kept playing. I looked at Dad. He stood 2 steps back, hands in his pockets. "You weren't invited," Mom said. "Leave." "Dad." He swallowed. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." That hurt more than anything Mom had said. Then Linda Brooks appeared behind them and asked who I was. Mom smiled. A distant relative. I looked through the open doors. Flowers, candles, white chairs. Everything I had helped pay for. And somewhere inside. My sister was getting married. I set her gift beside the entrance. Then I turned around and walked away. I made it to my car before the applause started. That was when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. They had planned for me to come. They had also planned to keep me outside, and every one of them had expected me to accept it quietly. Back at the hotel, I closed the door and leaned against it until the room stopped tilting. I was still wearing the navy dress. The gift was gone. My toast was open on my phone. I stared at the words I had written about Ashley at 5, making me marry her stuffed animals in our living room. Then I deleted everything. My hands shook too hard to remove my earrings. I sat on the bed and listened to the air conditioner hum. Outside, a car door slammed, somewhere down the hall. Someone laughed, inside that room. I felt erased twice, first from the wedding, then from my own idea of what family was supposed to be. I cried until my chest hurt, not loudly. I had spent too many years learning how to break without inconveniencing anyone. The next morning, sunlight pushed through the curtains like nothing had happened. Ashley had posted 14 wedding photos. The first showed her and Ethan beneath the lights. The second showed both families together. Mom, Dad, Ashley, Ethan, Linda, Robert, no me. The caption read, "Surrounded by everyone who matters." I read it 3 times. Then the bills started arriving. The remaining balance was about $38,000. Venue, food, flowers, photography. All of it waiting behind the payment method Mom had asked me to provide. Minutes later, Ashley left me a voice message. "Hey, Hilary. Yesterday got a little awkward. I'm sorry it happened that way, but the wedding was perfect, and I appreciate everything you did." That was it. Not "I'm sorry they turned you away." Not "I should have come outside." Not even "Are you okay?" I called her. "Did you know Mom was going to stop me?" Silence. Then she whispered. "She said she would handle it if you showed up." If I showed up, she didn't want to explain everything to Ethan's family. "You knew I wasn't on the seating chart." Another silence. "I thought you'd understand." I hung up before she could turn my pain into another favor. That afternoon, Aunt Carol called. She had noticed I wasn't at the wedding and rejected Mom's version of events. I told her everything. When I finished, she said, "Don't decide anything while you're hurt. First, find out exactly what you agreed to." So I opened every payment record, bill, and message. I read slowly. Mom and Ashley were listed as the event organizers. I had paid the deposits. My card was only the backup method for the final charges. Then I found messages I had forgotten. Mom, "We'll cover the rest after the wedding." Ashley, "You're only helping us hold the reservations." The final charges had not gone through. For the first time since the venue door closed, I could breathe. On Monday morning, I contacted each vendor. I did not dispute the services. I did not ask for my deposits back. I withdrew permission to charge my card and gave them the organizer's contact information. Every confirmation said the same thing. Payment method updated. My name removed. By noon, it was done. I sat beside the hotel window with my shoes off and my navy dress folded over a chair. For years, I had asked one question. How do I make them understand me that morning? I asked another. How do I stop abandoning myself 3 days after the wedding? My phone rang. Mom's name filled the screen, and this time, I was ready. Mom didn't say hello. "The vendors are calling me," she said. Her voice was low and tight. "The bill is $38,000. How will you pay for 1 second?" I thought I had misheard her. Then I laughed, not because anything was funny, because the entitlement was so complete, so effortless, that something inside me finally broke free. "I'm not paying for a family event after you told me I wasn't family." Mom gasped, a small sound, sharp, involuntary. I could picture her standing in our kitchen, one hand pressed to her chest, coffee cooling beside the sink. "You kept me outside the door," I said. "You don't get to keep my money inside." Her voice changed. The softness disappeared. "After everything we have done for you, you mean raising me?" "Yes, Hilary. Feeding you, clothing you, sending you to school. Families do things for each other. Families also let their daughters through the door." That was one moment. No, it was a decision. She went silent. Then came the next weapon. "Your father is under enormous stress. His blood pressure is already bad. If something happens to him because of this, Dad's health is not connected to my credit card. You are being cruel. I am being clear." She started listing consequences. The savings they would have to touch. The questions Linda was asking. The humiliation of having bills redirected to them. Ashley's new marriage. The way people in town would talk. Not once did she mention what happened to me. Not once did she ask if I made it back safely. When she finally paused, I said, "You are upset because the bill found the people who threw the party." She hung up. 40 minutes later, Dad called. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Hilary, can we be reasonable about this? Were you being reasonable when you watched Mom erase me?" He exhaled. "That isn't what happened. You stood there. I didn't know what to do. You could have opened the door." Silence. That silence had followed me through childhood, across birthday dinners, through every emergency I fixed while he looked away. "You answered me at the venue," I said. "You told me not to make things harder, so don't pretend you were neutral. I'm sorry you were hurt. That's not the same as being sorry for what you did." He had no answer. A minute later, the line went dead. Ashley called next. She was crying before I picked up. "Ethan knows," she said. "His parents know everything." "Good. How can you say that they barely speak to me?" "Ethan slept on the couch last night. Did you know I wasn't on the seating chart?" Her crying stopped for half a second. "Hilary, yes or no yes? Did you know Mom planned to stop me if I came? She said she would handle it, and you let her." "I thought you would understand." "No. You counted on me staying quiet." She began talking faster, about the loan they might need, about the apartment they wanted, about how unfair it was to begin a marriage in debt. I listened until she ran out of breath. Then I asked, "When you saw me outside, did you come to the door?" She said nothing. That was the answer. Later that afternoon, Aunt Carol called Linda Brooks. Carol didn't exaggerate. She didn't insult anyone. She simply told the truth. Hilary is Ashley's older sister. Hilary flew 18 hours. Hilary paid the deposits. Hilary was turned away by her own parents. Linda confronted Mom that evening. Mom called it a private family matter. Linda replied, "It stopped being private when you brought a lie into my son's marriage." Ethan confronted Ashley. He wasn't angry because I withdrew my card. He was angry because his wife had watched her sister be erased and still walked down the aisle smiling. The Brooks family refused to cover the Parker side of the bills. Suddenly, everyone had exactly what they had given me. Mom had exposure, Dad had silence, Ashley had consequences, and I had distance. That night, Mom called one final time. Her voice was quieter. "What do you want from us?" I looked at the navy dress hanging beside the hotel window, an apology without a bill attached. There was a long pause, then she whispered, "I can't do this right now." I closed my eyes. For once. I didn't chase her. For once. I said, "Neither can I." Then I ended the call. The bills did not disappear. They went where they belonged. Mom and Dad used part of their savings. Ashley and Ethan took out a loan for the rest. Nobody lost a house. Nobody went hungry. They simply had to pay for the wedding they planned, attended, and enjoyed for years. I had rescued them before consequences could arrive. This time, I stepped aside and let the truth do its own work. Ethan did not leave Ashley, but he stopped pretending everything was fine. They started marriage counseling within the month. Ashley sent me a long message one night. She said she was sorry. Then she spent 6 paragraphs talking about the loan, Ethan's anger, and Linda's coldness. She never mentioned the gravel under my shoes. She never mentioned the door. She never said. I knew, and I let it happen. I read the message twice and answered once. "When you are ready to apologize for what happened to me. Not for what happened to you afterward. I'll listen." She did not reply. The story moved through town without my help. I never posted anything. I never called neighbors. I never sent screenshots to anyone. People simply asked questions. Why had Susan never mentioned an older daughter? Why had that daughter paid the deposits? Why had she been standing outside the venue? Mom hated those questions because she could not control the answers. Dad changed more quietly. A month after the wedding, he sent me an email. It was the longest message he had ever written. He said he saw me walking toward the doors. He said he knew Mom was lying. He admitted he stayed silent because speaking up would have meant confronting her in public. Then he wrote, "I failed you as your father." No excuse, no request for money, no warning about his health. Just the truth. I cried harder reading that email than I had in the parking lot. I did not forgive him immediately. I thanked him for being honest and told him trust would have to be rebuilt slowly. For once, he accepted that. 6 months later, I was promoted at work. My manager told me I had a gift for staying calm when everyone else panicked. I almost laughed. I had been training for that role my entire life. I also started therapy. That was where I learned the phrase over-responsibility. It meant carrying problems that belonged to other people because I was afraid they would stop loving me if I put them down. So I started putting things down. The bills, the guilt, the job of keeping everyone comfortable. One Friday evening, Megan invited me to dinner with friends. I wore the navy dress. For a moment, standing in front of the mirror, I saw the woman outside the wedding venue. Then I saw who she had become. At dinner, people moved over to make room for me before I even asked. No one needed my money. They were simply happy I was there. That was when I understood the real ending. I had not taken anything from my family. I had only stopped letting them take from me. Family is not a free pass to use someone, erase them, and still expect them to pay. A boundary is not revenge. It is the moment you stop confusing love with surrender. I still care about my family, but I no longer finance the choices they make at my expense. That wedding door did not prove I was unwanted. It proved I had been knocking on the wrong door for years. If your family told you that you didn't belong, would you still pay the bill, comment pay, or boundary? And subscribe for more true family stories.